How are you doing, Rob?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I've been meaning to watch Inland Empire for a long time, and I watched Mulholland Drive years ago, so I'm glad we had an excuse to rewatch. Although not glad that David Lynch died. Um, he was a unique filmmaker, so the occasion or the reason why I watched these, I'm not happy about,
Hmm.
but I was glad to revisit these films and watch Inland Empire for the first time.
Have you seen any other of his works?
No, I've just Mulholland Drive. People have been telling me for years to watch Twin Peaks, but
Hmm.
it looks pretty weird. I know it was like a show in the '90s, and then I think they revived it for Showtime some years ago, like 2017, I think. And when I heard about that, I thought about watching it, but I just never got around to it. Oh, you know what? No, I watched Blue Velvet too when I was like 20, and I was probably too, I don't know, too young or unsophisticated to really get it. But I still remember thinking it was interesting. Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, I remember I've seen Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive, and now Inland Empire.
Yeah. So, so I used to drive on Mulholland Drive. When I was at UCLA, you would go through I'd come from the east, and you would sometimes go that way, and it's very interesting. It's like in the middle of the city. It's like you're getting to the nice part of Los Angeles, and it's like you're driving. You could see it. It's like you're driving on a hill, so it's like so underdeveloped, and you could look at the cities under you. And I'm sure there's land use regulations, or maybe it's hard to build how houses or businesses in the area. But you're driving through the hills, and you're looking down on Los Angeles, and it's actually it's quite beautiful. It's like a very scenic drive.
Yeah, is
And
Mulholland Drive
sometimes,
like a nice part of Los Angeles then?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's. I mean, you're going to. I mean, there's no houses. It's like there's no. You're going to a nice. Yeah, if you want to get to a nice part of Los Angeles, you get there. And there's this. What is that road? Is that Mulholland with all the? So there's like these roads with just hills, and like a lot of famous people live there. I don't
The
know if that's
Hollywood
Mulholland
Hills.
Drive too, but yeah. Let me pull up the map of Los Angeles and see if I can find Mulholland Drive. Okay, now that's gonna take too long. Let me find it on my screw it. Okay. Anyways, yes, it is a nice part. It's not like it's like Hollywood is in the vicinity, like UCLA, Bel Air, Santa Monica. All these things are the west side of town, and they're all pretty close in proximity. And Hollywood is kind of seedy at some points, but still, I mean, it's all a very nice area. And so you get the sort of geography of LA. I mean, she's driving down that road, and the girl who was called Rita. Um, anyways, forget all that. Well, what was your impression of the film? Just like a sort of a 5 star, review, or like overall impression of each one. How much did you like them?
I liked Mulholland Drive a lot more than Inland Empire. I watched, Mulholland Drive even when I was, again, this was another movie I watched. I was 20 or 21 the first time I saw it, and it was, there's obviously like a massive, multiple mysteries hanging over the film, but it's something that you can follow and track, and there is something resembling a plot there. And so, I liked it. It's a movie I would probably rewatch again. Whereas Inland Empire, first it was way too long. I mean, that was 3 hours long. I, there's something of a plot for the first, maybe 45 minutes or an hour, and then the last 2 hours of the movie completely breaks down into a series of seemingly random sequences and vignettes and scenes. And I read online like various interpretations. There's one that I found semi plausible, but yeah, Inland Empire. I don't think I could sit through that again. I could barely sit through it the first time, but I really enjoyed Mulholland Drive a lot.
Yeah, it was torture for me. I mean, I liked the first 30 minutes or something. Like, okay, this is intriguing. Where is it going? I felt like it felt like Mulholland Drive was like, okay, like it's a little bit too dreamy and uncertain of what this is about, but like there is a core plot, and like you could interpret it. And it's like 2 hours, and it's like actually like it's like a normal movie for like 70% of it. I mean, it's not until they find, and there's going to be spoilers here. People, to the extent Inland Empire has a plot and it can be spoiled. I don't even know if that's possible. But Mulholland Drive, I think, can be spoiled. And so until I think that until they find Diane, dead, and then they go back to the apartment, and then Betty disappears. Until then, it's like a normal movie, kind of with a normal plot, and you think it might
Yeah.
just end like a normal movie, and then it becomes strange. Um,
Mhm.
and then, yeah, Inland Empire, and then I'm like, okay, I get David Lynch. It's like, oh, it's these, like these sort of, postmodern kind of, you choose your own adventure kind of thing. And then I go to Inland Empire. It's just like, come on, you've taken it too far. Like, there's nothing here. Like, within after an hour, I'm just like, yeah, I don't I know what's gonna happen the rest of the movie. It's just gonna be a bunch of random weird stuff, and none of it's gonna make sense. And at the end, I'm
Yeah,
just
it was
gonna
really
have
bad
like,
actually. Just you describing it again is making me relive it and just like, oh my god. At a certain point, I like halfway checked out of it, and it was just one disjointed scene after another, and
I mean,
yeah,
with a little more. I mean, it could have been compelling. Like, the filmmaking is good. I mean, it can be compelling in service of a plot. Anyways, let's go sequentially, I guess. Um, Mulholland Drive. Um, I feel like I don't know, the lesbianism is like something that like stood out to me because it's like this is like raunch culture, height of raunch culture, like the way we imagine lesbians. Like today, I think we know better, but back then, like we
no
imagined
better.
like lesbians were all like super hot, like these two women, Rita
Two
and
lipstick lesbians.
yeah, yeah, Laura Herring and Naomi Watts. We were just like, this is what lesbians are. They just find each other lonely in the big city, and they start having sex, and like, I don't think you can even make this movie today because like nobody would believe these were lesbians anymore. Like it's just like the idea of what a lesbian is. Like it can't be made. It wouldn't be made because like the idea of a lesbian has changed, and like you can't just make something like, I mean, you could, but it's like less likely. So like explicitly male gaze and have it be like seen as like sophisticated art, the way that this was at the time. Like today, it would be seen as too raunchy or sexist or whatever, right?
Yeah, you're trying to appeal too strongly to like the male gaze, the male sexuality. You're very clearly going out of your way to titillate men rather than yeah, have an honest portrayal of what lesbians are actually truly like. And I think they're both in real life heterosexual women, right? Like they
Yeah,
are two straight women, and I think like a lot of LGBT people or activists would get upset about that too. That you have two straight women playing lesbians when you should have real lesbians in those roles too.
okay,
But yeah, that was 2001. So I think that was yeah, like kind of the 90s and 2000s. That was the era of yeah, like raunch culture. Yeah, just much more, I guess, sexually or less uptight sexually, or less uptight as a culture with sex and with
yeah.
kind of appealing to heterosexual male
What year
preferences.
was Brokeback Mountain? Brokeback Mountain was like a
It's
big
like
story because it had
oh
two
five.
homosexual. Yeah, so, like, it was hugely controversial because, like, 4 years later, they had 2 men. I was like, "We don't wanna see this," like, the culture was like, but, like, yeah, you could see that, and, like, having 2 lesbians, in a movie was, like, considered okay, and then 4 years later, it was like, I don't know, maybe because it was, like, subversive because of these guys are, I don't know, because they're, like, cowboys, and it was, like, the George Bush era, so maybe it was, like, subversive for that reason, but it's funny, like, in retrospect, like having a homosexual love story, like how big of a deal that was at the time. I mean, do you remember? It was like everyone was like talking about, like, oh my god, like how could
Brokeback
this be a
Mountain. Yeah,
movie?
I remember the controversy there. Yeah, there was like a double standard there. I mean, it was like it appealed more to like the like men and I guess like just generally more. It was a more conservative time in a way where yeah, showing hot lesbians making out on TV was fine, and it was still considered transgressive, but not beyond the pale. And then yeah,
Yeah,
Brokeback Mountain was much more controversial and seen as edgy and yeah, provocative. Even though you had like two like good-looking, normal straight guys playing those roles, right? Jake Gyllenhaal and Heath Ledger. Uh,
yeah.
Today, that even Brokeback Mountain, I don't think could be made today because you have like two normal-looking heterosexual men playing these two gay men,
No, I think
and I
that's
don't think
yeah.
I
I don't
think
know. I think
people
that goes
they
too
would want a
far.
gay they would want gay men in those roles, right? Like they want representation, they want those roles going to real people who identify with that social category.
Mm,
Um, Although I don't know, like it is a thing in the gay community. Like it's considered a trophy to have sex with a straight guy. So maybe
mm.
that would actually be okay to have like one gay and one straight in that role.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, anyways, yeah, Brokeback Mountain is fascinating for all kinds of reasons. I actually found Brokeback much more, watchable than for all the gay stuff, much more watchable than, there's a Family Guy
Inland
skit
Empire.
where,
So
like,
that's the question. Would you rather sit through Inland Empire or Brokeback Mountain?
uncensored Brokeback Mountain, where you have to sit through all the scenes. Yeah, there's a funny Family Guy episode where like there's just like a cutaway to like Brokeback Mountain, and like the horse just like takes a peek in the tent and like and, like freaks out and runs off.
Oh,
It's, yeah, so Brokeback, Mulholland Drive. Unlike Inland Empire, there is a standard um, there is a standard explanation, right? And my understanding from reading Wikipedia, like I don't know, a few Reddits, is like the um, it was a dream. So Diane,
yeah.
it was all a dream, and Diane is the woman, and she mentions herself as Betty, and then having control over Rita, who is Camilla, right? Um, is and but so Rita and Betty are no, I mean Camilla and I'm sorry, Diane and Betty are different actresses in the film, right? Camilla
Um,
and Rita, I think, are the same, are they not?
Camilla and Rita are the same, but Diane and Betty are also the same,
No,
right?
they're the same actress.
Yeah, Naomi Watts plays both Diane and Betty, and
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Laura Herring plays both Rita and Camilla. Um, Although it gets kind of complicated because then in like if you assume the dream
Uh-huh.
versus real life, that's the explanation. Then in real life, there's another actress named Camilla, uh,
Yeah,
and in Diane's dream, she somehow collapses that Camilla into the Rita character and makes them the same person in her dream sequence, which is like the first 90, whatever, I guess like 80% of the film or something. So it gets a
uh,
little complicated. But yeah, Naomi Watts plays Diane and Betty, and then Laura Herring plays Rita and Camilla. But then there was this other character. Melissa George plays Camilla Rhodes. Why does she look familiar? Oh yeah. She was in Triangle and a bunch of other good movies. Anyway, so I think like I generally buy that interpretation of the plot too. Like, I haven't seen any other reasonable explanations. Granted, I read the Wikipedia and I read a couple of reviews of the movie, and that seems to be the consensus is that in Diane Selwyn, the real blonde woman, she was in a relationship with Camilla, and then is a more successful actress than her. She's kind of jealous. She puts out a hit on Camilla, and then is what racked with guilt over what she's done,
yeah,
and then has this dream where she reimagines herself as this cheerful, bright-eyed, naive Hollywood, aspiring Hollywood actress, and Camilla actually isn't killed, and instead of Camilla being successful and her being envious of her, instead she's the one who's going to be the successful Hollywood actress, and she's the one who's taking care of Camilla, who calls herself Rita, and and then, kind of the whole entire dream sequence is her trying to kind of outrun her own conscience or her own guilt. But there are so many like unanswered questions to me, like who was like the elderly couple that you see at the beginning of the film, and then
yeah,
they come back and like they're little tiny people who climb under the doorway
yeah,
when Diane, after the dream sequence, she's like in her apartment and they climb under like there's like a bunch of like weird David Lynch, unexplained things to me. But that like general framework of the plot makes sense, or at least like is comprehensible or like yeah, helps me to understand
So,
it.
does Camilla get killed or not in real life? Because she finds the key, right? She
Mhm.
finds the key, um, which is supposed to be the sign that it happened, right?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, that's right. She finds the key on her coffee table when she's laying on her couch. She wakes up, she sees the key, indicating that the deed has been done. And you remember the cowboy scene in the dream. Adam, the Hollywood producer, he goes, drives to see this cowboy, and the cowboy says, if you've seen me one more time, you've done good. If you see me two more
Yeah.
times, you've done bad. And you
Okay.
see the cowboy twice more in two different scenes in the movie. And I think that's like, Diane's subconscious or whatever, like telling her, that she's done bad because she chose to hire this assassin to kill Camilla. And in her dream, the assassin bungles the attempt, right? Like there's the scene where he goes into the Hollywood producer's office and shoots him, but then the bullet goes through the wall
Yeah.
and hits this other, I guess it's his assistant or something. She's this fat woman who like has a bullet wound on her side and she says something bit me real bad. And I don't think you could make like a fat joke like that today where there's like a fat woman who takes a bullet and says like something bit me.
uh,
And then yeah, what is it, like the custodian, the janitor comes in and he has to kill him too, and this guy's like very obviously an inept assassin. And I think like that's somehow Diane's subconscious like hoping or like wishing that that's how it had gone and that he hadn't actually gone through with the murder of Camilla, who she feels guilty about
mm.
having killed.
Okay. So when the neighbor comes into Diane and then says those detectives were looking for you, I think she's presumably talk. I don't know. Like I feel like there's a lot that's unsatisfying here. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Here's another interpretation. Betty is the real one. Betty is real. Um, Camilla finds Betty. The Camilla finds Betty because she stumbles into the house because that's where she knows she deep because she happens to go into that house because she happens to go to that house because she has some memory. That's like where they lived or where they broke up or something. And Betty, no, that doesn't make any sense because we saw Betty at the beginning and we see her surprised. Um, and yeah, I guess that doesn't make sense. I don't know. It's not
Yeah.
satisfying. So
I
how
mean,
does
the
how,
other the
how
other thing that's like not satisfying is the Adam character, like the Justin Thoreau. He was in the show that we watched, The Leftovers. That character. Um,
oh, that
you
was the
know,
cop. Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. He looks a lot younger. He looks a lot different. He looks like, yeah,
Oh
I think
yeah,
he got jacked for the Leftovers
yeah.
role,
It's
but he
like
got like
15-year difference. Yeah.
yeah, but in Mulholland Drive, like his character, I didn't quite understand like what he was supposed to represent. I saw something online about how he's supposed to be this other aspect of Betty's or Diane's psyche because he also is like sort of romantically jealous. He like catches his wife in bed with another man, and he's kind of humiliated in this way. He's a cuck. And then when he grabs the wife's jewelry, you remember that scene? He grabs the jewelry and takes the pink paint and pours it all over her jewelry, and then he gets the paint all over himself. So now he has paint on his body, and Betty wears pink in all of the dream sequences. She's usually wearing pink, and so somehow he's also supposed to be this other aspect of her psyche. But I don't really like fully get everything like what that's about, if it's something to do with romance and jealousy and tension, something like that, because in Diane's real life she and Camilla were lovers romantically. But then she also, I think, felt humiliated because Camilla was in a relationship. I guess it was with Adam, like the real Adam in real life. Like they were dating,
Mm.
and then you see Diane observe Camilla. Um, like I think she makes out with some other blonde woman, and so that also like elicits some jealousy from Diane. But there's like, yeah, I think like even your interpretation where you were going could just as easily be right. Honestly, like I feel like I don't know if David Lynch had, like if you asked him what happened, would he actually, and you give him some truth serum, would he actually be able to tell you what all of this means, or is this meant to be completely subjective and open to interpretation?
I think that's the mystery. I mean, there is. I did see. Did you see the Wikipedia page where they're like there are like 10 questions that come with like the director's cut, and he's like, "Oh, here, pay attention
Mm.
to these 10 different things." And so, like, it seems
Right.
like he's trying to, um, he's trying to sort of lead you in a certain direction. I do. I think that it is like people talk about the interpretation. It's like Hollywood, right? It's like sort of like everything is not real. Like there's a lot of jealousy. There's the idea that like two people can be similarly situated and one's career could really take off, and like the gap between like success and failure is like so massive, right?
Mhm.
And the directors have a lot of power. I mean, this is like the Harvey Weinstein thing. There's a meme. Did you ever see the meme on that goes on Twitter, like Quentin Tarantino like wrote a scene where a man sucks whiskey off the foot of Salma Hayek, and then he wrote himself into the role, and then it shows like the meme of him like actually doing it. Right. It's like this is like, yeah, Hollywood. It's like has to. It's like predatory, but it has to be predatory. Oh, and by the way, when Betty was this line, this idea was there when like Betty goes to audition for that one thing, and she's talking to these like really like creepy old guys. Right, the scene is like her
Oh
with
yeah.
that very old guy, and he's like he's sort of like with an old guy's like really into it. It's very subtle. It's not like so obvious he's like a bad guy or whatever, but he's like it's kind of like it's a little over the top. And then that the freaky thing was that bald guy who was just like talking in these like very pompous like platitudes. I found that's very funny. He's like, you have to act like, and then, like everyone else, like the women and the men, are all like rolling their eyes at this guy. And then she gets out, and like these women are like, oh, those guys are old, whatever. Come with me. It's like sort of the feminist kind of like rescuing Betty from that scene, and then she takes them to the to Adam's audition. She's gonna do the audition to that movie where Camilla is supposed to get the role.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it is kind of this idea that like Hollywood is kind of like a land of big dreams and like with like terrible disappointments and heartbreak. The cowboy, I'm trying to
Mhm.
figure out what the cowboy is uh, there for, and I think he's just like a Hollywood trope. Is that all he is? Because like he's just there, and he's just like why is there a cowboy? Like why is a cowboy in control of the mob? Who wants that? It's like these Hollywood tropes that don't make any sense, but it's scrambling them together. It's like mobs and like Italian mob and like cowboy run by a cowboy who tells you who to like place in your movies.
Yeah. Well, I guess like yeah, it could be. Well, assume like if this is a dream state in Diane's mind, that she herself is probably obsessed with Hollywood, right? So she has all of these Hollywood tropes floating around in her subconscious, and
Mm,
cowboys are supposed to represent like like stability and order and law,
yeah.
and like he has that stern quality, right? Because when Adam first meets him, he himself is amused to like why am I talking to this cowboy in a corral? This is ridiculous. And the cowboys like stop being a smart aleck, and listen up, and like would you agree how a man lives his life, whatever. Like he's like talking to him the way that you would imagine like a serious cowboy, a straight shooter would talk. And then Adam becomes serious, and then the cow, and so I think like yeah, like on purpose he's this cowboy trope. um but yeah, like the the whole, I think you're right that it is supposed to be this commentary on Hollywood. Well, that's like apparently this is like a common theme in David Lynch movies. So again, I've only seen prior to this, us preparing for this conversation, Blue Velvet. And Blue Velvet was similar in that like it contrasts, I guess, like the idyllic American image of suburbia with like domestic violence and crime and all of these things that are happening sort of just beneath the surface. And that's like a strong theme in Blue Velvet, and I guess that's supposed to be what's happening in Mulholland Drive, is like the dream state is like the glitz and the optimism and the glamour and the hope, but then the reality of Hollywood is, people backstabbing each other and feeling envious and feeling like success is so much more difficult to attain than maybe she'd been led to believe, and so she feels that she has to assassinate Camilla, who's much more successful than her, in order to
Hmm.
get revenge and maybe get the roles that she's been given. So yeah.
Yeah. What about, yeah, when they go to that silencio, when they go to that club, and then what's that woman's name? She's like apparently a really a famous singer. Let me see here. Her name is Rebecca Del. I think she was playing herself. Yeah, Rebecca Del Rio. Um, and so yeah, it's just like the guy who comes out magician says it's not real, and then
Hmm.
they come, and then then the Rebecca Del Rio comes out and she's singing that song, and then they have a moment. They're very touched by it, and then she collapses, and the music continues. And I guess the idea here is, this is all going back to dreaming. What's fake and what's real? The moment is real in the sense that they feel something emotionally, but it's also fake because they're looking very the camera's very close up on her face and you see it. And she's got this weird face paint. I don't know. It's kind of it was unsettling watching it, and but then she collapses. So, but it's not real because she's not actually singing. It's a recording. So this seems like
Hmm.
consistent with the whole dream and Hollywood and fakery and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, I that is yeah. I mean, that scene was interesting too because when we saw that, was that was after the first time they were at the club when Rita's wearing the blonde wig, right? Which I think is
Mhm.
like another instance of like identities collapsing and everything is like when she
Rita
puts
wearing
on
a
the blonde wig.
Rita was after the what do you thought about Rita was wearing a blonde wig at a club? What was that?
That
That was
that was when they were watching the woman sing and then she collapses. Was it the same woman who was singing? Rebecca, what did you call her?
Del Rio.
Del Rio.
Yeah, same woman as who?
Yeah, she collapses. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, they're watching Rebecca Del Rio at Club Silencio. So this is on Wikipedia. Yeah, Rebecca
Uh-huh.
collapses, but her singing continues.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, this is when um, Betty and Rita they go into the apartment that turns out to be Diane's real apartment when she wakes up. But they go into this apartment that is Diane's apartment, and then they find that corpse in the bed, which I guess is supposed to maybe foreshadow Diane actually killing herself in the bed in real life. And then they hear a knock at the door, they flee, and then somehow they decide that this means Rita's really in danger now. So she cuts her hair and puts on the blonde wig to like disguise herself.
No, you know what I thought at the time? She was
Mm,
in danger because okay, so Rita didn't remember who she was, and they go into her what she thinks is her old apartment, and they find this girl who's dead. And so
yeah.
I think they thought that Rita had killed her.
Oh,
And
oh,
then Betty was
oh.
like, "Oh my god, we have to save you. So we have to give you a disguise. Like we're gonna give you a new hairstyle, I guess."
Yeah.
And that's what I thought was good because she didn't know it. Like she had all this money. And so she's like she doesn't remember who she is. She's got all this money. And so she's like, "Am I a drug mule? Am I a criminal of some kind?" Like she probably has to think that. And then she sees the girl dead and she thinks she might be involved with that.
Responsible or yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. I thought that maybe she thought that whoever killed that girl was actually trying to kill her. And so someone was in
Why would
pursuit of her.
what would that reason why would that person be wanting to kill because they could go to the police anytime. I
Yeah.
think what actually but this is the clue that they're thinking like this because when Betty brings up let's go to the police, Rita takes out the money and shows her. And they're like, I go to the police. They're like, "Oh, you're a drug kingpin. Like, go to jail forever." Right? It's like they. That's the whole reason they can't
Yeah,
go. So
yeah.
if someone's just looking to kill her, they could
Mhm.
go to the police, but they don't know. They think like she might be like a
She
lawbreaker.
might be involved. Yeah. She might be entangled in some kind of criminal activities. Okay, so yeah, then they put the blonde wig on her, and this is perhaps consistent with this idea that Diane, this is all a dream, and Rita is supposed to be also like kind of an aspect of her own psyche of this naive woman. Um, so she puts on the blonde wig, and then they start to. Well, no, no, no. They had their first. I think they had two. There was two sex sequences, right? There was like one that was in the dream, and then one that was on the couch. That was like like
Yeah.
less cinematic. Um, but she wasn't wearing a blonde wig in either one of those. I don't think. Um,
No. No,
yeah.
the blonde wig was the blonde wig was after they found the body of Diane.
Mm,
But was that before, that was before or after they became lovers? I think that was before. Um,
okay.
Let me see here. Uh, Let me see if I can remember this. Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think that no, I think it's actually they find. Uh, yeah, because oh yeah, 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 because that was the end of it. Where they find they become lovers and then they go. And then I mean I remember that's when it like the normal part of the movie ends because I think it's in the immediate aftermath of her for of finding Diane. I
Yeah.
think. Um, yeah, let me see here. Uh, let's ask. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT. It's actually better than Wikipedia on this. In Mulholland Drive, do Rita and Betty find the body of Diane before or after the scene at Club Silencio? Oh, I never had that happen before.
But it wasn't able to.
ChatGPT. Yeah, in Mulholland Drive. Sorry, everyone, but I think this is important. Uh, is the scene where
They have sex
Betty,
after she cuts the hair and wears the wig.
Betty,
It's after.
yeah, Betty and Rita uh, find Diane's body before or after the night at Club Silencio. Is there like some kind of thing on ChatGPT which says you can't ask
Well,
about
I'm reading
movies?
Wikipedia now. They break into Diane's apartment, discover the decomposing corpse. Distraught, she cuts her hair off.
Yeah, they say it says before they find the body before.
Yeah, it's before
Which leads them to
the
the
blood.
club. Yeah,
I
Diane.
see.
Okay, yeah, they go Diane. Yeah, so they're not lovers at the time when they find Diane's body. Um, they go, they have sex. They go to the club site. Let's see. Okay, yeah, yeah, and then the scene. All right, yeah, okay. Um,
Although we don't know if
so
that's Diane's body in the bed. I
yeah,
mean,
somebody's body.
it's a
Right.
decomposing corpse. Um, yeah, and then these names, right? Like Betty, that name, apparently came from the diner, right? Because then we see in the second half or whatever, the final third of the film, we're actually seeing events that took place, I think, before the dream, and then because the timeline is not linear, because we see Diane in the diner, and the woman who serves her, the server, her name is Betty. We see on the name tag. So I think later when she goes to sleep, her subconscious takes that name and applies it to herself. Um, and then what did you think of the scene where you have the two guys who were sitting in the diner? This is like pretty early in the movie,
Yeah.
and the guy is saying like, I have this dream, and there's someone behind this uh, restaurant in this building. It's the most horrifying thing I've ever seen. And then they go back there, and the guy's like, come on, it's all right, there's nothing back there. And then you see the ugly, horrifying looking, I guess, homeless woman or man. It's unclear, like, even what gender or sex that thing is, but
Yeah.
terrifying. And then the guy like immediately passes out. And so what's like what is that supposed to
Yeah.
represent in the
And then
movie?
that like homeless creature also like has like the blue box at some point, right? Like near the end. They're holding one of the yeah, that person that thing has also has yeah, another relevance there. It's yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I haven't seen anyone try to make sense. I'm sure someone has, but I haven't seen anyone try to make sense of that scene. It just kind of like just sits there. I don't know. Do you have ideas?
Um, I mean, I'm just googling it now. This whatever this is, Mulholland-Drive.net. It it says that the homeless man is Diane's acknowledgement of her own mental problems. Um, a very important distinction is that the homeless man exists both in Diane's dream and when she wakes up. Okay. So maybe she's seen this thing before and then
Yeah,
incorporated it into her dream, and it's supposed to. Well, you said okay. So you see the homeless man. You see him. I guess it's supposed to be a man with the box, and the box has the key in it, and the key is like basically symbolic of Diane's ultimate obscene transgression of hiring an assassin to murder someone. And so you could say that this ugly creature is like another sort of aspect of her psyche, the guilty part of herself, the ugly part of herself that is responsible for killing Camilla. But yeah, I just like it's a very roundabout way of doing it. And then like had these two guys in the diner having this conversation. Like why, she's dreaming this, I guess. She's dreaming about these two guys having that conversation.
yeah. I guess
Um
dreams are. I mean, I guess dreams are kind of random. The yeah, I mean, the mob guys is another interesting one because they're just these guys, and they have like they're like not even like it's. I guess dreams are sometimes like this. They're not like fully. They're not like right out of The Sopranos. They're not like you can't even. It's not like okay, they're supposed to invoke Italian mobsters, but they're like not clearly even like Italian, like you think they are, because like sort of they fit the stereotype, but they're sort of like ethnically ambiguous, and they don't really have like Italian accents, and they have this weird. Um, yeah, they have this weird segment when they're sitting there with the coffee, and he just like spits it up, and like I guess their fear, I guess the maybe the idea, so maybe that goes
mm,
back to the homeless guy. It's like that's another thing to fear in Hollywood, like just these weird street people who are on drugs or homeless, right? And so like maybe that's like a symbol of that. And then the like I don't know, there's just like thinking of like mobs and like criminal elements and just like intimidation and like mobsters, like but combined with like the Hollywood trope, right? I
mm.
think these are just kind of like, yeah, I mean, like, it seems like there's a clear divide here between like things that are symbolic and things that are kind of essential to the story, right? Or is there? I mean, I do think with Lynch, I don't know, like, I do think that like there's a quote somewhere where he said it was supposed to make sense. Um, I think that's right, and just because of stuff is random doesn't mean, uh, yeah, it doesn't mean like the rest of it doesn't make sense. Okay, yeah. I don't know. Like, is there? I mean, can we construct a thing, and can we construct um, a story where Diane is fake, or Diane is Betty at different parts of her life, um, or something? Because like I don't know, it makes too much. Like she has that money, Camilla like gets hit in the head. She has that money. The money is with her. She finds Betty's apartment. All of that seems real. Like the dream starts out very real. Oh, and by the way, wasn't Betty being driven on Mulholland Drive at some point near the end? Like, what was that thing where Betty was like, she was on the phone and then she ends up driving in the
Mm.
back of a limo, and she uses the exact same line I think that Rita does at the end. I forget what the line is. We don't get out here or something like that.
Yeah, we don't
Um,
care. Yeah.
yeah, what was that? Was that just guilt, or was that like, is that a clue that something else is going on? I don't like
Mhm.
that. I sort of want it to be more complicated. I don't want the most obvious explanation to be right.
What that it was all a dream. I mean, I'm looking at these. Yeah, the 10 clues. David Lynch's 10 clues to unlocking this thriller. I mean,
Yeah,
it does basically seem,
like a clue to
the
Miss Nectar.
specifics maybe debatable, but yeah, I think like the more we talk here, the more I'm convinced that like the broad idea of sort of the dream sequence, and then each sort of part of the dream represents something about Diane's psyche and guilt and everything like that. That seems to me to make the most sense. But then, yeah, there are some unanswered questions here, like the end when she says we don't get out here. Um, yeah, even yeah, the decision to kill herself. I guess like well in the dream when they come across the corpse, that may have been her. Yeah, she's actually thinking about committing suicide, and that was just a representation of that desire. Um, yeah, but then Yeah, I don't know if
So
you could create like a coherent, because what you're trying to, yeah, where Betty is the real person, and then Diane is the, you know,
fake, or like maybe
whatever.
a different, maybe a complete, maybe a different person, despite them being played by the same person. That makes me uncomfortable. But somehow they're different people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. So there are a couple. Um, yeah. So the one where the blue haired woman who says silencio, like that is at the very end. I thought there was a trans. I thought there was a man as dressed as a woman, but everything I've read says they just describe her as a woman,
Mm.
right? So did you think that person was a cross dresser?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I didn't really think that deeply about it. Yeah. Well, I mean, if it would be interesting if it was a cross dresser, because that too would like be symbolic of like identities collapsing, or like ambiguity around identity, which is like seems to be a main theme of the film. So that would have been, yeah, that would have been interesting if it was a cross dresser or some kind of
Yeah.
intersex ambiguous person.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I mean, there's all these these interpretations I read. Like at the end, she says "silencio," and the point of that is like David Lynch is telling you to like stop speculating, just
yeah,
be
shut
silent.
up and watch. Like,
Yeah, I think that's a little bit too on the nose. I don't know.
yeah. I mean,
I
yeah.
guess
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, but I mean, I guess the Spanish, like the why Spanish, is like another question, right? It's like just another kind of Hollywood kind of trope, right? It's just like Hispanics are around, like the city is called Los Angeles, like it's just like kind of a, Spanish is sort of in the air, so this is just like another reason why we Spanish rather than some other language.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing, in the New York Times obit for David Lynch from a couple weeks ago, it says Mr. Lynch's films were characterized by their dreamlike imagery and what is it? Manichean narratives that pit an exaggerated, even saccharine innocence against depraved evil.
Mm.
And so I guess like, I don't know if it's like pitting, but you can see like the Betty character being, you know, the innocent character, and then within the same person, right? So, Betty and Diane are the same individual, say, then one, Betty is the innocent side of her, and Diane is the evil side. Um, and then within the Camilla character, you could say that too, that Rita is innocent, uh, or at least like seemingly innocent. But then the real Camilla is, I mean, she's not evil, but she is successful, and um, she seems to care for Diane, but also like is very interested in her own success because she's sleeping with the Adam character in real life, um, who basically potentially to get ahead in her own career, which may be a commentary on Hollywood. So
Mm.
much of this was like that, right? Like, do you remember Adam? This was in the dream sequence, or at least that part of the film where Adam's talking to, who is it, his assistant, and he's like, or she's telling him, "Oh, your bank account's frozen, and you can't access any of your money." And Adam says, like, "Okay, well, I need a place to stay." And his assistant's like, "Well, you can stay with me." And
Uh,
Adam's like, "I don't think that would be a good idea." Um, and so yeah, that was interesting. So if Adam is part of Betty's or Diane's psyche, he's like does the right thing here and chooses not to stay with his assistant, because like I guess the implication there being like if he were to stay with her, then she would try to seduce him to advance her own career.
no, but yeah, I think I don't think that's right because he's just not interested in his assistant. But he's still. Well, I guess this is after his wife cheats on him. So yeah, he does. Well, he does do this thing where he's doing the movie scene, and he gets in there and like starts kissing. I think it's Camilla at that point. So he's like, I think the idea is like he's a little bit of a creep. He is using his kind of position of influence and power to like I don't know kiss women and feel them up and stuff. But
Wait,
like
the
the
real
assist,
Adam or the dream Adam? The dream Adam seems like a good guy. I think the real Adam is kind of a creep.
who is the no, that was the dream Adam at that point because that he was being intimidated into hiring Camilla. So, or
Yeah,
wait,
yeah,
when
yeah.
was that scene? Yeah, I actually don't remember that scene where he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be the," he takes the role for himself and starts kissing the women. Is that the real Adam later, or uh, is that the Adam from the is that the Adam from the beginning?
I thought that was the
I
Adam.
think it is the Dream Adam.
Okay, I thought that was I thought that was the Adam later
You
in the
you
film.
you might be right. Let's ask ChatGPT again. It's so good at this. Uh, that's in Mulholland Drive. The scene where Adam kisses the actress in the car on set. Was that uh, was that Adam during the dream of Diane? Oh, this might be too much for ChatGPT. Or was that Adam later? I don't know how it's going to handle this, but let's see.
Hmm.
Occurs during Diane's dream, not the real world. Oh wow, ChatGPT is smart. It knew exactly what I was getting at. That was yeah. The
Yeah.
sequence part of it constructs a
Wait a
perfect
minute. So,
example.
well, but then it's acknowledging that there is a dream too,
Yeah.
which is
Well, no,
interesting.
yeah. And then it goes on, and then yeah, it goes. The sequence is part of the dreamlike version of Hollywood that Diane constructs to cope with her guilt and feel. I wouldn't read too much into this because it's just taking what people
Yeah,
are
what you
saying about it.
said. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, so yeah, so that Adam is sort of predatory. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world that he does. He just kisses that actress, but it's not like just because he won't sleep with his assistant, who's just like annoying him, is just like
Well,
I don't
he's
think
like
that's
generally seen as like a better version of the real Adam, right? Like he's the one who gets sexually humiliated. He's the one who's being kind of uh uh beleaguered, and then he chooses not to sleep with his assistant, and like just generally, I think like maybe in this. So in the real world, Adam's this, whatever. He's kind of a creep. He's, clearly uninterested in advancing Diane's career. So then in the dream, she has to humiliate him a little bit and belittle him in order to deal with her real world feelings of resentment toward him. Um, and so the fake Adam, the dream Adam, is someone who's maybe unwilling to exert his power, doesn't have the power to decide who advances in their career or not. I'm reading here in Wikipedia that apparently David Lynch. So this was a film critic, David Starrett, spoke with Lynch after the film screened at Cannes and wrote that the director insisted that Mulholland Drive does tell a coherent, comprehensible story, unlike some of Lynch's earlier films, such as Lost Highway. And so, I mean, if this is true, then there is an actual coherent, comprehensible story. That there is like something that you can actually make sense of here, and it's not meant to be random
yeah.
or just some something he
Well,
stitched together.
since we're using ChatGPT, let's let me try this. Make the best case possible
For that
for
Betty's real and Diane is
Mulholland Drive. Yeah, that this is like ideal for it. That that Betty is real Betty is real and Diane is either not real or there is some other explanation.
Figment.
Descent from Meg. Okay, let's see what it says. Certainly, here's a compelling case in which blah blah. Okay, Betty is the primary. Betty represents an idealized figure of optimism, talent, and purity. She arrives in Los Angeles. Betty is blah, blah, blah. Okay. The film, Diane as a narrative device. Diane may be functioned not as a real person, but as a symbolic projection of Betty's fears, insecurities, or potential futures. Diane's story, marked by failure, despair, and betrayal, could represent the cautionary tale of what could happen if Betty succumbs to the darker side of Hollywood. In this reading, Diane is a fragmented identity or shadow self, appearing only to contrast with Betty's purity and optimism. The film structure supports Betty's reality point. The traditional interpretation suggests a dream reality split, with Betty representing Diane's dream self. However, the film's nonlinear and surrealistic narratives allow for another possibility. Betty's story is real. Okay, they're just repeating the words. Um, Diane's sequence may function as a meta. Okay, they're not. That's not a good. Club Silencio is a reinforcement. The scene in Club Silencio emphasizes the idea that it is all an illusion. while often taken as evidence that Betty's life is a dream, it can also suggest Diane's narrative is the illusion, challenge the notion of objective reality. Hollywood is a dream factory. Diane's limited presence. Diane only emerges late in the film after Betty's story has been fully established. Her presence could be read as a counter narrative designed to challenge the viewer's assumptions. I don't know. It's not that. I don't find that good. Let me see. Rely on facts from the movie rather than speculation of what things might represent. Mm, okay. Uh, Diane's body. Yeah, this is a good one. When Betty and Rita find a decaying corpse in Diane's apartment, there is a factual event. That is a factual event in the film. While the body is referred to as Diane, it is not confirmed the corpse is Diane shown later. No direct link is made between the corpse and the real word Diane. I was gonna say, uh, yeah, I was gonna say that that's just like evidence that Diane is actually dead. Like the standard interpretation says Diane is dreaming of herself being dead and decomposed,
Mm.
while like a simpler explanation is like she is actually dead. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, overall though, Betty's reality is more tangible and more realistic than Diane's reality, right? So if you take Betty's reality, like that's 80% of the movie, that seems like a normal story. Diane is just like all dreams. And like so maybe that person is the fake one. Because like why is a person's dreams like so coherent and their reality is screwed up,
I
right?
don't think. I mean, we're just seeing it out of order. I don't think her actual. I don't think Diane's actual reality is that screwed up. Like
Well, the old
it's
people. I mean,
just.
the old people are walking into her under her door, and she's,
Oh, okay.
and she's, yeah, she's. What was she masturbating to? That one scene. What was she doing there? That was for. Do you remember this?
And she was crying. Yeah, I mean, I thought she was just like remembering Camilla.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so the old people going under the door, that is like that's actually like outlandish.
yeah.
Um,
So Diane's storyline, such as the hitman scene, is like surreal and
and it,
exaggerated elements. So that's part of Diane's reality. That's seen with the hitman. Um, that's and Diane also doesn't she see that guy who was at the she sees that guy who was at the diner, right? She sees him like he
yeah, she does.
appears, and
Yeah.
so like yeah, Diane's reality looks fake. I mean, the Diane
I
reality
think it looks
like
fake. Well, the thing, like now, like the strongest argument is that like the only thing that's supernatural that occurs, like everything in either world, dream world or real world, is something that could happen. But you're right. Like the little tiny old people going under the doorway, that only happens in Diane's reality. And so that is like an argument in favor of like that world being less real in some way. And like now it's making me mad that that scene is even exists because like the old people in general don't make that much sense to me, like their purpose in the film. But then also like when they become tiny and go under the door, like yeah, that just infuriated me. And now it's making me even more mad because yeah, it calls into question which reality is real.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, the old people, I mean, I don't know, like old people sort of exist like in an alternative I don't know. Sometimes like you'll meet someone on a plane. It's interesting they met Betty on the plane. And then it's like, oh, you'll never see them again. So you could like, I don't know, like be relaxed around them or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then like I guess they bond on the plane and then they're like, okay, I'll look for you on the big screen, the old lady says.
Yeah.
Um, and then and then yeah, and then they split, and then the old people like they're driving away and they're like have these deranged like seeing laughter. I don't know why. So maybe like the real Diane in the standard interpretation, like met these old people. I don't know. She's imagining it's uh I don't know, but she's like scared of them, but it's just like something because she's mentally ill and like even something that's not scary, like these old people who are being nice to her is actually become scary. I know, and then when they come after her, they're just coming after her like smiling and like they just have like their ugly old faces and they're just trying to grab her. They're not actually doing anything to her, but it's like oh like everything is scary, like even like just smiling old people.
Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah, to me, that's like as good as an explanation as any. I just haven't thought of any like purpose that they
Yeah.
serve. If you were to remove the old people from especially the film where they shrink and go under the doorway, if you removed the old people altogether, I don't think the movie would change that much. Um, so I'm reading the David Lynch's the obituary in the New York Times, and they call Mulholland Drive a poisonous love letter to Hollywood, um, no, a poisonous Valentine to Hollywood. So I guess it is supposed to be, this critique of Hollywood, and yeah, but then that's assuming the sort of, I guess, widely held standard interpretation now, versus what you're trying to suggest here. That actually,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, I don't know. I
that's
sort of
interesting. What you're saying is like the cheerful version of Hollywood is real, and that the dark, seedy underbelly, that's the dream. But or is it the nightmare? Like maybe, okay, if you assume that Betty's the real person, some part of her is
yeah.
fearful that despite her optimism and hopes and dreams, that actually Hollywood is this dark and dirty place, and that she may potentially have to assassinate Rita, who is her friend and now her lover. And so these are nightmares that she has,
Mhm.
rather than yeah,
Yeah.
Diane having these dreams.
Anyways, yeah, I mean, we spent an hour on Mulholland Drive. Do you have
Yeah.
anything we should do Inland Empire? Do you have anything else that you wanted to talk about, or before we move on to the next movie?
Um, I mean, nothing in particular here. I think like yeah, we've done as good a job as any, I think, in trying to explain this film.
Yeah.
It seems
By the
like
way,
it's
yeah, I wanted to say the idea that like the we talked about how the lesbian thing was like you could it's different from our ideas of lesbianism today. I think like the character of Betty in the film is sort of also like out of place. Like the idea that someone could be like that innocent. Like I think that was much more common before like the internet and like social media. I think most people would be much more cynical. Like I don't know. Like she would have like there are people who are like still like Betty today, but they're usually like sheltered from like religious communities and stuff. I think like for like a normal girl, just because she happens to be from the Midwest, to be like bright eyed and just like that optimistic and nice, I think that's like sort of. I think that's you're much likely less likely to see that in 2025 than 2001.
Yeah. Yeah, although even back then, despite the absence of social media, right? I think like mass media and pop culture, this was still like the era of like, post grunge, post like, hip hop was still
Yeah,
big, and
right.
music and movies, and there was that kind of like criticism of consumer culture. That was still like an era where movies like Fight Club and The
Yeah,
Matrix and Office Space, like these kinds of movies that questioned the prevailing dominant themes. But we're probably more cynical today
yeah,
than back then.
yeah,
But I think even back then, like even in 2001, a character like Betty was probably, a little unrealistic, and her
yeah.
cheerfulness was supposed to maybe be a clue that that something was off about the film, and like, to start questioning what's really going on here. Um,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
one of degree. It's one of degrees. I don't know. Like
yeah.
it is something that I think became less common as time went on. I mean, you could have that, like you wouldn't even have it as like a trope today. It would just be like too unrealistic. I mean, but these people do I don't know, like, you have to go to, like, religious communities. You have to go to, like, sheltered Mormons. I mean, you will see this. You will see people like this, like, "Oh, golly gee, like, let's have some, marshmallows." I mean, there are, like, still women like that. I mean, they're not common. And, like, without, like, some kind of religious, like, thing or some kind of connection like that indicating she's from a sheltered background, it just becomes sort of it's less believable, in the current year. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Inland Empire. I have a funny interpretation of Inland Empire, which is the name of the movie is a clue. The true hell on earth is the Inland Empire of California because it's hot. Everyone is on meth. It's expensive. You have
Is
California
everyone on
taxes. You're sort of jealous because you're close to LA, but the traffic stands in your way and you can't get there. And her only real life is her like living this, kind of like, sort of depressing existence in the Inland Empire. And yeah, that's the real movie, and everything else is we could work backwards from that. I don't know, but I like that interpretation just as something that holds it all together.
I liked Inland Empire basically, yeah, up until like minute 45 or minute 55, whatever. I mean, I really was intrigued when I gotta look up the cast here, the Inland Empire cast. The main woman, she's sitting in Nikki. Well,
Yeah,
she's also she
Nikki's
goes
a
by two names too. It's like Nikki and Susan, right? She has because she has like the her she's an actress. This is
yeah.
like like a sort of spiritual successor to Mulholland Drive. So she's an actress, and her real name is Nikki, but then she plays a character named Susan. But Nikki is in her beautiful suburban house, and this like creepy old Eastern European lady comes in, uh, a visitor, and starts telling her these kind of like Polish folk tales about there was a little boy and he was evil, and there was also a little girl, and this was in the woods, and like right away I was intrigued as she's going through this because just the camera work, it's like handheld, grainy footage, the way that like they're zooming in on the faces, there's this like unsettling quality to it. And then there's like a something, yeah, like resembling like a plot here of her trying to get this role, and like time there's like time jumps, and like the old lady who visits says like, if this were tomorrow you'd be sitting over there, and then it jumps to the next day where she is sitting there and she receives the call that she got this role for this, this part she'd auditioned for. But then yeah, and then it starts to kind of unravel from there. My interpretation of this, and like it's who knows, like I think this is a movie that maybe doesn't have a real, like David Lynch doesn't have a coherent explanation, which was like in the very beginning, even before we meet Nikki, we see these two characters with their faces blurred out. Do you remember this? Like very like literally like the first scene in the film, you see it's like black and white footage or just
Yeah.
like very grainy. It's like a man and a woman, and I think like she's stripping, and he's like, I think he calls her a whore and says, "What do whores do?" And she says they fuck, and their faces are blurred. And then you see this woman sitting on a bed watching the rabbits, uh,
Mm.
and then from there, I think it transitions into Nikki in her life. And so my interpretation of this, and maybe this is just sort of bleeding over from my read of Mulholland Drive, is that the whole movie is about that woman watching TV and how she's feeling guilt about maybe her sexual misdeeds. Because at the very end of the movie, you see that same woman again go downstairs, and her husband is the Polish guy who was married to Nikki Dern or whatever. Is that her last name? Nikki Dern, I think. No, Nikki Grace, whatever, Nikki. Um,
Mm.
and so it's like bookended by the same woman, and so I think it's the same woman who has her face blurred out. I think that's the woman. She did something wrong. She's watching TV and she's like imagining slash dreaming of Nikki, who's not a real person, because she herself, right, cheats on her husband with Billy, and there is this like undercurrent or this theme of infidelity, and her husband who's like kind of spying on her and warns her not to cheat, and warns Billy, her co-star, not to cheat, or not to sleep with his wife. And then at
Mm.
the very end this woman reunites with her husband and is like chooses to like I guess abandon that whatever that way of life or something. That's kind of my interpretation of Inland Empire, but I'm not that confident in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm trying to even remember like what happens at the end. It's like it all blurs together. And so it's like she kills that guy. Who's that guy? Like she kills that guy, and then they have that close up of her face, and her face becomes ugly. What is that? Like, what is that supposed to be?
Wait, what is what? Like her face? Like when
Yeah,
it?
but all of it. Who is that guy? Like, why is she killing him?
Yeah, so that one I don't know. Like the whole plot at a certain point just started to lose me. Um, Let me see here if like I'm just like scrolling through the Wikipedia page. Or you could ask ChatGPT. Oh yeah, Wikipedia doesn't even have Wikipedia like doesn't even have a plot. Oh no, it does have a plot summary, but it's very short.
Okay, let's
Okay.
do. I'll do. Inland Empire. Who is the man that Nikki shoots at the end, and why does she kill him? Oh, and why does her face become weird? Okay, this is such an awesome tool. Uh, is widely interpreted as the Phantom. So the
The
Phantom.
Phantom, right?
Who talks? You know what? I maybe I just my attention wandered. What is this Phantom? The who brought up the Phantom?
Uh, well, okay. So reading Wikipedia, Nikki tells a policeman how she was sexually abused in her childhood, and she speaks of the Phantom, who was a hypnotist who worked at the circus and then disappeared. Uh, and then I guess yeah, Nikki slash Sue is stalked by the Phantom throughout the film. Eventually, she's confronted by the Phantom. Nikki shoots him. The Phantom transforms into a grotesque figure before dying. All right, I'm gonna look up Inland Empire Phantom just so I can remember. Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
It says that her face becomes distorted. She shoots the Phantom, may symbolize the immense psychological toll of confronting such profound evil or darkness. It could represent her transformation. The Phantom's influence. Okay. Uh, so tell me about the Phantom. Phantom in Inland Empire. Where is he referenced? First, let's see. There's a shadowy city, says shadowy figure. Um, oh, he's mentioned in the conversation of the production, the cursed production of On High in Blue Tomorrows. The term phantom is not immediately used. The looming sense of an unseen corrupting force tied to the cursed film. Okay, so why do we call it the Phantom from the films? By actor Christoph Moore. So the Phantom is her Polish husband. Is he one of like he's the Phantom is like these different things, and like so there's her
different like male
husband,
figures.
and then there's a version of her husband who's like at that barbecue or whatever in the depressing Inland Empire. Is that the that's is that like parallel? Is that like different her at different points of her life? Is that the same guy? Is it a dream? Is it what is that? When
Yeah.
they're actually like that scene in the barbecue.
Uh, that one, yeah, that's. I mean, there's a bunch of like random disjointed scenes. There's the scene where she's in that like living room with all of the prostitutes, and one of the prostitutes is like, you know, tells the other one, "You have such great tits," and she like lifts her
Yeah,
skirt up, and like then they start dancing to the song "Locomotion," and then they disappear, and at a certain point, I just like I kind of like stopped tracking what was going on. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, like I remember her shooting the Phantom. I remember the weird face, and then I remember like the very end. But then in the interim, like yeah, I mean, then at one point they're like suddenly appear in Poland in the 1930s,
Uh,
and the Nikki character is suddenly like a character in the 1930s with her husband Smithy, who I guess is the same guy who plays her husband in real life. So yeah, um,
Look at this. So I asked GPT, is there an interpretation where Nikki is just a girl living in the Inland Empire of California and not really an actress? Yes, there is an interpretation where it's not actually a Hollywood actress, but a rather ordinary woman living in the Inland Empire of California. It says, yeah, it's yeah. I mean, these explanations are very good. The Inland Empire is a real place. That's true. It's known for its sprawl and economic struggles. It contrasts sharply with the glamour of Hollywood. It could imply the film is not about a Hollywood starlet, but rather a little woman living in the Inland Empire, grappling with her fractured psyche. Um, Many of the film's key scenes occur in modest, nondescript interiors that feel more like lower middle class homes than the lavish world of a Hollywood actress. So yes, there's a thing where she gets pregnant and she's like, "I'm pregnant," and her husband is just like this, ne'er do well who's just like sort of sitting there. Um, she wanders through empty suburban streets. Her time in dingy apartments suggests an everyday existence rather than a life of stardom. Um, Despair connection. Yeah, the lost girl, another key figure in the film seems trapped in a similar cycle. Yeah, and then they make out, right? Like there's all these lesbian stuff. You know, it's like the breast scene,
Yeah.
and then the one where Nikki is making out. Yeah, I mean, she could have reconstructed a reality for herself where she's like a Hollywood actress. Her husband is like, there's this like immigration theme. I don't know. There's like these like it's like this idea that like Lost Girl, they're talking Polish, right? And they're in the hotel at the beginning. And he just, and so like this idea that like maybe that's like another part of Inland Empire. I don't know. There's like, are they known for human trafficking and prostitutes? I don't know. But maybe that's like another thing. And then like Nikki goes and makes out with that girl near the end. She like finds her like, and so yeah, I don't know. I like this. Um, I like this interpretation. I think just like and what is that one where he says where there's two guys who are talking to Polish, and by this point I checked out and wasn't even paying attention to what's going on, but like they said something like, "Oh, he's going to the Inland Empire." Like, do you remember that scene? What was that even? What was going on there?
No, I don't even remember the scene. Um, yeah, I well, so I'm reading this New York Times article about David Lynch, and it calls Inland Empire willfully abstruse, all but refuses to be a movie. Uh, and they call it a blandly inscrutable movie, as well as an homage to Miss Dern, who was on screen throughout. So the main actress who's in the movie, and then it says Inland Empire has no logic apart from its moviness. I mean, that seems a little unfair. I mean, like it's possible, like David Lynch had some vision for it, but it does seem like you know again, like this is just it's just so much harder to decode. What's real, what's not real. Wasn't there a scene Nikki is killed, right? Like she's stabbed and like dies in the street with all the homeless people.
Mm.
And then the camera pans out, and and then you hear the Jeremy Irons character yell "cut," and that was all supposed to be a movie. And so part of me just wonders if like David Lynch is just like questioning like the power of Hollywood, of like the nature of storytelling, real life versus fiction, and how it all is just, at a certain point, we can no longer tell the difference between make believe and real life anymore because we've become so immersed in Hollywood and in films and movies and stories.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, like I've like at a certain point, like I gave like because even like I was intrigued in the beginning where do you remember when the Jeremy Irons character is talking to Nikki and Billy, his two leads, and he's like, by the way, this is actually a remake of a Polish film that we discontinued because like one of the leads was murdered or something like that. And I was like, oh, this is actually like it has my interest. Like there's this haunting quality to it. And then yeah, it like rapidly breaks down and like there's no coherent sense of of a story at all. Remember they're reading their lines and they're interrupted and they're set. They hear a noise and they get up and like later we learn that it was actually Nikki there, like in the set somewhere, and then she
Yeah.
runs back into the house, but it turns out to be a real house, and Billy's chasing after her, and like yeah, it got so weird. I usually like weird movies. Like I felt like Mulholland Drive was good. Like I can handle weirdness, but there's got to be something keeping it all together. I just didn't see that with this one.
Mm. Yeah. What are the rabbits? What is this?
Yeah, what is the rabbit? Yeah, what were the rabbits about? I saw this clip on YouTube because I tried to make sense of the movie. I like looked up like reviews and stuff, and there was an interview where someone asked David Lynch straight up like, "What do the rabbits represent?" And he was like, "I'm not going to tell you," which is like fine, but like no explanation at all for what does ChatGPT say? I'm going to ask actually. What
Okay.
do the rabbits represent in Inland Empire movie? Okay. The rabbits in Inland Empire are one of the film's most cryptic and intriguing elements, and their meaning has sparked considerable debate. The
Yeah.
presence is surreal and unsettling. David Lynch has not provided a definitive explanation. Several interpretations emerge. So they say one is the possibility the absurdity of domestic life. The rabbits could symbolize the mundane, repetitive nature of domesticity, rendered absurd and alien when viewed from an external perspective. So I guess like when we see them as rabbits, we realize, yeah, just how bizarre it is. alienation and isolation. They seem disconnected from time and context, speaking in cryptic sentences that feel loaded with significance but ultimately defy understanding.
Ugh.
References to Lynch's themes of the uncanny. Rabbits are often associated with innocence and whimsy, but Lynch transforms them into something unsettling, highlighting the uncanny. Okay, that's like somewhat interesting. I mean, it sort of fits with his theme of like contrasting innocence with depravity. And so rabbits are something like playful, but then like putting them in that part of the film, it makes it seem creepy. Um, but like none of this really, like none of these are satisfying. So
Yeah. Look, I think that I want I'm fine with like experimental films. Like I want to watch actually more stuff that's like a little bit weird and out there and see how my tolerance for it and how I react to it. But you can overdo it. Like you could just have like an essay that's just like a bunch of fragmented sentences, and it could be like you could make a symbol. Like it's like looking at the clouds, and you could say some person says, "Oh, that's a chariot," and another person says, "Oh, that's a shopping mall," and it's like you could do that, and it's like if you're an artist and you're just throwing a bunch of random stuff out there, like people can tell stories, but like, is that like talent or genius, or is that like something amazing, or is it just like throwing a bunch of random stuff out there and letting people play with it?
was
But
this his
and I feel like
last movie? David Lynch? Was this his last one?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of I wonder if that's like he was almost a victim of his own success. Where like, especially coming off of Mulholland Drive, which is considered his masterpiece, if after that he's like, finally I'm gonna make the film I want, and then he just went like full retard and made like a completely disjointed movie, and no one was there to call him out and say like, hey, like none of this makes sense. You got to edit this and turn it into something. And because he
Interesting.
was
So
David Lynch and he's so
according to
famous, like
Yeah, according to ChatGPT, he does have a film that was a short film that was released on Netflix in 2020 from 2017 called "What Did Jack Do?" Maybe we should watch that. That's
Jack,
short. Let's see how long it is. It's only 17 minutes, so it's like not really a film.
pretty much.
Uh, it's like a
Okay.
17 minutes short, I guess, on Netflix. Maybe that would be worth watching. But yeah, the list 10 movies here on ChatGPT. He made Dune. He made the original Dune in 1984. Hmm.
The synopsis for What Did Jack Do? A detective, played by Lynch, interrogates a capuchin monkey who possibly committed a murder. I mean, all
Sounds
right.
fun.
But then someone for IndieWire referred to the film as bizarre and unsettling. Rotten Tomatoes gave it 93%, the critics. I don't know, 17 minutes. I'll watch it. I'm assuming it's going to be weird and probably not good, but I'll check it out.
The Yeah, maybe we should watch it. It's 17 minutes. Maybe we should watch it together. Maybe we should do like a screen share where we just watch it and then like
Comment on it. Live
yeah, that would be
commentary.
fun. That would be fun. I wonder if we could do that. Netflix and Amazon. Yeah, I tried to take screenshots from like Amazon Prime while watching it on my iPad once, and it wouldn't let you. So there might be a
Oh,
way.
I've heard
Actually, we'd
about this
probably
too.
yeah, we might get kicked off of whatever. They might come down on us for copyright if we just did that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what we
Uh,
could do is just like, turn our screen, the webcam away, watch it and comment on it. And then whoever wants to watch it along with us can watch and like have our commentary alongside it if they want
Yeah,
to do something
yeah,
like
that's
that.
not as fun, but I guess that could be a one way. Even if you have the audio on, I think you could probably, if you have the whole thing on, we probably won't get caught. It's interesting. I uploaded a video to YouTube the other day. They do like an automated check to see if you have copyrighted material. It's amazing. The
Wow.
technology must be incredible.
This is AI.
Um, yeah, and they must have some database of like everything in the world and see what's there. Yeah. Well, so you said you watched Blue Velvet. How was that?
Blue Velvet. Yeah. So again, it was like 15 years ago, but I really liked it. And it was like it was not that weird. I remembered having like a coherent plot and commentary on sort of suburban bliss versus like the seedy underbelly of like these criminals who sort of like barge into the area and yeah, but I don't recall like specifics like characters and so on. But I really remember like it is considered one of David Lynch's kind of better films. So
Mm.
I would rewatch it. Um, yeah. Was that his first? And then I've also like, I don't know, I've been thinking of so Lost Highway was like another kind of controversial film of his. I think most of his movies take place in LA actually. So I would
Uh,
watch Lost Highway, which is supposed to be like another one of these weird movies that like bends identity and um, kind of
yeah.
is not at all sort of like non-sequential narrative.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
134 minutes. I'll watch it because like, I'm not gonna make the same mistake for Inland Empire. I'm not gonna torture myself for 3 hours. I already made a commitment
that
to do that.
that was
If it
brutal.
sucks, if it's like Inland Empire, I'm not gonna finish it. But I'll try it. I'll try Lost Highway if you want.
Yeah, I'll watch Lost Highway. What's the? I want to see the critic score. Lost Highway. Yeah, I mean, 69% with the critics, 87% for the audience. That's interesting. That the audience actually has it higher than the
Does
critics.
the audience just I don't know? Does the audience rely like if it's like a famous director that people like? Do they just like super fans just go because I was looking at the Reddit of like Inland Empire. They're like, "Oh, I liked it," and I'm like, "Okay, who goes to a David Lynch Reddit?" Like, obviously, people who just like David Lynch. It's like I don't think that's everyone who watched Inland Empire. So maybe the Rotten Tomatoes are the same way.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I mean, I would watch this.
Okay, let's take some
Mhm,
time to think about what our next move is. I don't know. I sort of
mhm.
yeah. I don't know. Like, is this the next thing we should do more David Lynch just because we're on David Lynch, or should we do other stuff? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I'm
We'll have
I'm
to think
already
about it.
like skeptic because I'm reading the Wikipedia page and it says the film's surreal narrative structure has been likened to a Mobius strip. Lynch described it as a psychogenic fugue rather than a conventionally logical story. I mean, I feel like that's all of
Uh,
his movies, though.
yeah, I think I've had enough of that. I think I've had enough of that.
Yeah. So maybe
What's the most normal one? Like
I
Dune
think I
is
think
like
actually probably Blue Velvet is his most like normal, conventional. I guess yeah, his most conventional film.
a woman says, "What about Twin Peaks? Do you know about that?"
I mean, I've heard about it and people have been telling me to watch it, but it's also an investment in time, right? Because like it's a
Oh, okay.
series.
Oh, it's a series. I see it
Yeah.
as a Twin Peaks is a psychological horror film. I think there's a movie and a show. Oh no,
Really?
yeah, I don't
That's
know. No, I'm looking at the Wikipedia. Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me is it says it's a 1992 psychological horror film, and it says here it's 134 minutes. So how is it?
But then it says, okay, so I'm reading the Wikipedia. Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. It serves as a prequel to the television
No,
series Twin Peaks.
okay, I
And
see.
then after, so then there was, yeah, so it was a film first, then it was a TV series in the early 90s, and then it was revived for Showtime. When was it? It was, yeah, third season was aired in 2017. So that's, a movie in 3 seasons.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if
I mean,
I'm
I would
ready to do
start. I mean,
that.
it's not a big investment if you don't like it. You can always stop.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
yeah,
I'm looking at the comments here. Twin Peaks: The Return would be so great. Yeah, I don't know. Watching the '90s version.
watch the
Um,
show. Watch an episode of a show. You could handle that, can't you? You
Twin
might get into
Peaks.
it. You might think it's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. How different is Twin Peaks from Inland Empire? Someone comment. Is it better? Someone say it's
You
better.
will loathe
Negative.
FWWM. What is FWW? Oh, Fire Walk with Me. It's just saying
Uh,
I'll load that, but yeah, the show's I
Load
guess different.
Fire Walk with Me. I mean, do you have to start with the movie?
No, because it's a prequel, but it comes out afterwards. So it's like these things where it's like you'll like it. I promise, Sophie.
Oh, okay. Okay, so
So
you start with Twin Peaks then. So just start with the series.
yeah, let's start with the series because sequentially the series comes before the prequel. So like it makes you would watch it like the way everyone else does, right?
Yeah, this person says it's pretty conventional. Hmm. All right. Yeah. All right. I'll give it a try then. Sure.
Okay.
I'll watch the first
Uh,
episode.
it was on ABC. So you have if you have Disney Plus, I think you can watch it, right?
I think I have Disney Plus.
Sophie's a Twin Peaks. Maybe we should just do the podcast with Sophie. Then I'm a Twin Peaks expert. She's really wants us to watch this.
Yeah, get Sophie on here then.
Okay. I'll give it a try. I'll watch like an episode and see what happens.
I'll watch
I
an
can't even,
episode.
I can't guarantee I'll get through the whole episode. I mean, I'll give it a try. We should be more open to trying things. This
Yeah.
Inland Empire thing
People
is
have
like,
been asking me to watch it for years too, so I guess this will be an excuse. So is Twin Peaks season 1, season 2, Fire Walk with Me, and The Return. Okay. All right. Hey, Sophie says she wants to join Final Personalities based around Twin Peaks and House. I liked House. I remember
you
House.
liked House? I watched.
Yeah.
I watched. I've seen like fragments of House. It's just very funny. It's like doctor shows are always funny. Like all
Yeah.
these woke doctor shows, like they're so funny. It's
Well,
like,
House is not woke though. House
yeah,
was
I
like,
know.
that was a different era. Like House was like, I don't think it could be made today because he like regularly made, offensive jokes and like, casual racism, but like in a, in that kind of like mid 2000s, like ironic way where you like, he's not really racist, but he'll tell the jokes and like, yeah, it
Look
was,
at what this Tyler Tone guy
yeah,
says. So Tyler Tone, Twin Peaks is nearly as important for understanding development of modern television as The Sopranos. You just have to give it a shot at some point in your life if you are curious about these things. Okay.
nearly as important as this. Is it really that good? Okay, all right, fine. I mean, I like
Mm,
David Lynch overall. Inland Empire as a kind of glaring exception, but um,
yeah.
all right, because I've heard this too. I've heard that Inland or Twin Peaks is like, it's like iconic. It's important, and yeah. All right, I'll give it a try then. Sure.
Okay, cool. All right, well, everyone, thanks for joining us. There's a big so someone just told me how this works. There's a big subscribe button apparently if you're not subscribed to one of us. So just push that if you haven't, and then you will get notifications whenever we're doing these live streams. And yeah, I'll check out Twin Peaks.
All right. Cool. Same. All right.
All right, bye everyone.
Richard.